Alright, let's address the two main problems you need to fix before running Vecna, Eve of Ruin. Dad the Dungeon Master here, and the new D&D campaign Eve of Ruin has released recently. I've already read through the entire book and I am prepping my first session. But there are two things that I am absolutely going to fix before I start running this game. Problem 1. Vecna is hardly involved in the campaign throughout most of the chapters. He really just shows up at the end. And as famous as Vecna is, as well known as he's become over the last couple years with Stranger Things and with Campaign 1 of Critical Role, it is a shame to waste this one opportunity you're probably going to get to be Vecna. So, as a DM, for yourself and for your players, get Vecna more involved. There's a mechanic in the campaign where the players become linked with Vecna and they have like strange sensations based on their connection with Vecna. And I think what Wizards of the Coast was going for is kind of like Harry Potter's connection to Voldemort, where like he has these dreams about him and his scar burns and all that stuff. And that's cool, but I would say that you need to take it a step further. So this connection that they have with Vecna, in the book it says that Vecna himself is not aware of it, but I would change that. I would make it so that Vecna is aware that your party has this connection, and whether you explain to your party or not, I would have it that that connection makes Vecna realize that they are the only people with a chance to stop him. So while he can't step away from the powerful ritual that he is enacting, he will actively send problems to the players to try and thwart their attempts. Now, you don't have to change any of the encounters from the book, but flavor them as though Vecna sent those things to stop the players. Just make it so that he is present. And I would even have Vecna do like an astral projection type thing where he shows up and taunts the players, tells them they have no chance of stopping him. Maybe the players don't even realize it's just like an astral projection, but you definitely want to get the chance to roleplay Vecna more than just at the very end of the game, and you want him to be an ever-looming threat. You don't want, when you're writing a book, one of the main problems that new authors have is that they leave the villain out of the story. You want the villain to be present. You want it to be a constantly pressuring force on the story. That being said, one small issue that's not one of the two major issues is that there's no real pressure to move the story forward. There's no ticking clock. The book tries to give you some like pressure from different sources, but they don't really commit to it. So I would also use this connection to Vecna to pressure your players to make them feel like they really need to get things done or time is going to run out because they're seeing his ritual progress and get further and get closer to completion. So use this connection with Vecna in a different way than the book says. Use it as a way for Vecna to act against the players, and use it as a way to put pressure on your players to keep them moving forward. Because this campaign is basically a series of fetch quests, but with the right pressure, with the right stress put on the players, it can be a really fun, engaging, and fast-paced adventure. So that brings me to major problem number 2. And this is a big spoiler. There's already been some spoilers, but I'm going to warn you, this is probably the biggest spoiler for the campaign. So if you're a player and you're not already gone, get out of here now. There's a major NPC in this campaign in Mordenkainen. There's a few major NPCs, but the one we're going to talk about is Mordenkainen. Of Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes and all the spells that are named after him. So Mordenkainen is involved with Tasha and Illustrial Silverhand in trying to do like a 3-part wish spell to try and stop Vecna. So the way the book has it written is that Cass, the bloody-handed, Cass the betrayer, Vecna's one-time right-hand man who already betrayed Vecna once, he's made a deal with the Mists of Ravenloft, with the powers from the Shadowfell, and he's got this crown where he can perfectly impersonate Mordenkainen, and he is Mordenkainen from the beginning. And your party is not supposed to figure that out until way later in the adventure. So the book even has like a little tidbit about like what to do if your party figures it out too soon. I think one of the problems that Wizards of the Coast has had repeatedly throughout other adventures is that they underestimate how clever your players are. They underestimate how quickly they will figure things out. And so they kind of have multiple times relied on players not figuring things out, and the players always figure it out. At least in the adventures I've run, when there's a mystery, players figure it out so quick. These are smart people. They're playing D&D. There are people who are able to play D&D who are not the most intelligent people in the world, but in general, D&D players are a smarter group than your average person. So if your party figures out that Mordenkainen isn't Mordenkainen, or even goes a step further and figures out that he is Cass, it is going to kind of throw a wrench in the whole campaign. So I suggest, and what I'm going to do when I run this the first time, and I'll let you guys know how it goes, but I think this is the way to go. Instead of risking your party figuring out that Cass is Mordenkainen and Mordenkainen is Cass, what I would do is, and what I'm going to do is, have Mordenkainen be Mordenkainen for most of the campaign. Have him legitimately be the real Mordenkainen. And the book says it's Cass's fault that the spell doesn't work because he's not really a spellcaster or whatever. But why would Cass even go through with attempting it, you know? So have it be Mordenkainen, have the spell have failed for some other reason, and use the reasons from the book, like they don't know why it failed or whatever. But have it be Mordenkainen. He's the one who comes up with the plan for getting the Rod of 7 Parts. He sends the party. And then later on in the adventure, somewhere around chapter 6 or 7, have, you know, the way I would say is like, oh, Mordenkainen seems stressed. He's really pressuring the party. He seems more aggressive. He seems different. The pressures of trying to stop Vecna are getting to him. He feels like time's running out. But what is actually happening is this is the point where Cass takes Mordenkainen's place. Maybe he kills him. Maybe he captures him or whatever he does. At that point, have Cass take over and replace Mordenkainen. And if your party figures it out within the next couple chapters, it's going to be much less of a headache than if they figure it out in chapters 2 or 3, because most parties are going to figure these things out quick. And if you start talking about him behaving differently, they're going to get suspicious, but they've got a lot going on, so they might not pick it out right away. And that'll give you time to get to the end, and then you can, however you want to, reveal to the players that he replaced Mordenkainen, Mordenkainen's trapped in extra-dimensional space, whatever. But that way it stops your players from really throwing a huge wrench into the planned storyline by figuring out that Cass is Mordenkainen way too early. So that's how I would handle both Vecna not being present and Cass, you know, being Mordenkainen and your party figuring it out too soon. Because with this way, he's not Mordenkainen until later in the adventure when it's closer to time for them to figure that out. And those are the 2 major issues that you need to fix before running Vecna, Eve of Ruin.